In season one, every episode had a little story of behind the scenes, Richie and I with the kids. And they had asked us for something we were passionate about. And I said, I want to be baking challah with my daughter. I want to have a Shabbat. I want to show our cultural heritage. And one of the things I loved about that was that the network and the production company were like, they didn't push back on that. They were like, yes, let's go. Like, that's beautiful. Like they were really pro that. I wanted everyone to know that we were Jewish, like from the forefront, right? Like that was it.
I know your story, but a lot of our readers, viewers, listeners might not. So, just to start, if you could take me through your journey. So, you were born and raised and went to school here in Sydney. Richie is from Melbourne, and you have various businesses, and now you have this wonderful television show together. So, if you could just take me through how that all came about.
Absolutely. So I was born and bred in Sydney. I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and I went to Mariah College, very proud alumni. And I actually ended up finishing year 12 and knowing exactly what I wanted to do. So I was very, very curious about form and interiors. One of the very early memories I have of myself as a little girl was going to ballet on a Saturday morning, and mum and dad happened to be looking for a rental at that time. And I remember just like sitting in the car, like chin perched on like the window, like this, like wishing my superpower was I could remove the front facades of the houses and see through into them. Like I was so curious about what was behind those front walls. And so I remember going to ballet and coming to like, seeing rental properties and just like racing upstairs for like to see the bedrooms. And so I was always curious and interested with interiors. And like you do in year 12, you go to your like session with the careers advisor. And I had said, like, I don't want to do interior decoration. Like, I don't want to choose furniture, but I don't want to be an architect, but I love interiors. And she had mentioned that there was a new degree called interior architecture, and you kind of design from the inside out. And straight away, I knew that was for me. I enrolled and I did 4 years of the University of New South Wales. I did a Bachelor of Interior Architecture. And when I finished, I was looking for a job, and it was a very challenging time to find a job in this specific field. And so I kind of gravitated to really any opportunity, and an opportunity came up in Melbourne. And to cut a long story short, I ended up in Melbourne as the only interior designer in a medium sized architectural firm. And I learn't everything from scratch. I was like thrown into the shark's den. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's how I learned everything, by really being exposed to everything with pressure. And I just kind of taught myself. Shortly after that, left that design firm, that architectural firm, and started what was formerly known as Gabay Design Studio, which is now Studio Ezra. And the interior design aspect of my career and starting my own business began. Um, and essentially, I did that alongside other things. Like I also started Tiles of Ezra. I was always fascinated with tiles. And I think just being very green with nothing to lose, no real foresight for the future of any of these things, just going where my heart led me. And suddenly here I was with two operating businesses. Earlier on, I had met Richie. I met him within the first 3 weeks of moving to Melbourne. So he was in project management, in construction. And so he was doing his own thing as well. And for a little while, he was running his own project management and construction business. And that was the time that we were discovered in terms of our TV show.
So, that's a nice segue into the TV show. um, Design Down Under. How did it come about? How did the discovery happen, and what was the process from then on?
So it was such a serendipitous situation. Honestly, I still think back to how this all happened, and I just it's kind of bizarre. It's like, God, the universe weaving their way and weaving its the the way to fruition. It was a very strange moment, but essentially we sold tiles into the US, and there was a couple who had their own TV show who wanted to put Tiles of Ezra into one of their renovations. And this TV show had their own trade out production teams. And so they emailed us, Jenny wants your tiles. I'm like, let's meet. And it was the middle of COVID. Like we were in Melbourne, the harshest lockdown, sitting on the couch. Year one had passed, like it's grim, right? And we're sitting on the couch. We get in a call at 8:30 at night. The call was only meant to be with me on it. And Richie happened to be on the couch. I'm like, you're joining me. Like if I'm in this meeting at 8:30, you're coming along. So he joined. If he didn't, we wouldn't have had the show. So he joined the meeting, and three-quarter way through the meeting, the owner of Trade Out Production, whose name's Kaveh, he said to us, have you guys ever done TV? You're hilarious together. Like you've got a really great and like synergy when you talk. And I was like, no, but that's really strange because like we had just been contacted for another TV show in Sydney the week prior. So it was like really weird that these things were being thrown to us. And we got off the call. He called us separately and he's like, I want to put together a reel. And so within like a week we had a reel. He pitched it to a production company, and within another week, there was a trade agreement signed. So it was pitched to different networks, and it ended up being Magnolia Network who wanted to take us on. And that was it. It was signed by an American network, an American production company, but filmed in Melbourne, Victoria.
And so again, that takes me into my next question. It it aired in the US and it's taken a couple of years for it to actually come to Australia. Is that because it was a full US production team and no network in Australia had picked it up, or how did that all come about?
Yeah. So when you're filming TV, and like our specific contract was not like we have any say or rights with regard to what this show or who this show is sold to, or when. It's kind of like a waiting game. We don't really know information. The network makes that decision, and it's a strategic decision beyond our knowledge or control. But essentially, it was a US production, a US network. They showed it to the US and Canadian audiences back in, I think it was 31st of August 2023 was when it first aired, season one. And then season two, I think, aired December something. I can't remember. And so the seasons were like, I think it was 6 and 8 episodes. So all up 14 episodes. Magnolia Network, HBO Max, and Discovery Plus, they all aired it. And then shortly after, I think it was January 1st of 2024, a friend of mine from Sydney messaged me. She's like, I'm watching you on Qantas. I was like, what? So I messaged my good friend Jackie, and I'm like, Jackie, are we on Qantas? And she's like, I don't know. I'm going to message the marketing person. Simultaneously, Richie messaged his really good friend Alan, who's a pilot at Qantas. He's like, can you check to see if this show's on Qantas? So he's like, I'm not flying. So we then messaged like his friend that was in the air. He's like, can you check this show? And then like we just get a screenshot that it was on Qantas. It must have aired like on that day or shortly prior, like before that. And so it was starting to come out on different networks unbeknown to us. So it went on Qantas, and then we found out through my cousin who was flying Singapore Airlines. She was like, so proud to watch my cousin. I'm like, what? Like, this is crazy. And so slowly it was getting closer to Australia. Then it was on Hong Kong, Bangkok. HBO Max launched in Australia earlier this year. And so we were hopeful it would eventually get here, and it did about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And it's one thing for, strangers to see the show and to see you guys on TV. But obviously now it being aired in Australia, your families and your friends are seeing it too. What does that mean to you? How does that make you feel that your families and friends are now involved in the process?
Yeah. I think yeah, I think it's really challenging to film a TV show for 18 months, 8 till 5 every day, Monday to Friday, and not be able to have anything to show for it and not have, you know, it was hard from a product negotiation point of view. You're doing TV shows. This is like really no one has anything to watch. You've got nothing to show before. So getting, clients on board, budgets are low, and you've got to be super, super creative to try and get an incredible outcome. So, like from a material point of view and a PR point of view and like you're only able to say, well, we hope it's going to come to Australia. So it's hard to negotiate with Australian companies to get contra material or discounts. So that was challenging. But from a personal point of view, for years I've had friends, um, family members, contacts, acquaintances in the community, like saying, "How do we watch it? How do we watch it?" And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like, um, and so to be able to show that work now, it's like 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears. We put everything into this project, and it's a very proud moment to be able to air it to everyone that we love and people that we don't know that are based in Australia. Like, we're filming in like in suburbs that we drive through every day, and like really amazing Melbourne and Victorian suburbs. And I just feel like to not have been able to show that and air that to the cafes we filmed in and the parks we filmed in and the beaches, like we really were able to put Melbourne and Victoria on the map to a Canadian and US market. And so it's been really amazing to share that also with the Australian community.
And you mentioned before that it was airing from August through to December-ish to 2023. Obviously, that was, October 7 happened within that time.
Mm.
Um, did the events of October 7 and what followed, did that impact the way you filmed or the way you portrayed yourself in the show? You have been very open in the show about your Jewish heritage and the culture that you come from. Did that change following October 7?
Mm. Yeah. That was a very, very challenging time for Richie and I. I will say, like, one of the things that, when we did the show, being like a proud Jew, I think that we wanted it to be known to everyone that we were Jewish. It wasn't something that we wanted to hide or make obscure. Wearing a Magen David or like my Yafa necklace was like something that was in every episode, no matter what. You will see me with a symbol of Judaism, loud and proud, but also with the sound crew in mind because they're like, Georgia, your necklace is banging the microphone. I'm like, but in the very first episode that we ever filmed, which was the pilot, they wanted to have like a breakout moment. In season one, every episode had a little story of behind the scenes, Richie and I with the kids. And they had asked us for something we were passionate about. And I said, I want to be baking challah with my daughter. I want to have a Shabbat. I want to show our cultural heritage. And one of the things I loved about that was that the network and the production company were like, they didn't push back on that. They were like, yes, let's go. Like, that's beautiful. Like they were really pro that. And so on season one, episode one, we talk about, it's a very small snippet. They cut, I'm like talking for an hour behind the scenes and they cut it to a 1 minute segment of like it being a beautiful tradition that we do every week. But I wanted everyone to know that we were Jewish, like from the forefront, right? Like that was it. When October 7th happened, we had just been in um, Morocco for business. We got back on October 5th. It was a Thursday. Friday was October 6th, and October 7th happened on a Saturday. So we filmed on the Friday, and then we came back and filmed on the Monday. Whoa, that day, those months ahead were some of the most challenging months of our filming time. We then went to film until March, but I will say from October 9th, which was the Monday, till March whatever the like 20th or whatever the final day of our filming till March 2024, like we were glued to our phones. You can imagine like we are filming and then like there's breaks for like 1 minute. They'll be like, okay, move here. And we're like looking at our phones and then like filming and then looking at our phones. We were so, and then we had to go, so, like turning it on and off, but we were in this vortex of a complete, like we all know, I don't even have to put in words. You know what it was. It was very, very challenging. But one thing I did do, I put on a high that was this big. It would have been about 8 centimeters in height, a huge high encrusted in diamonds. It was like an heirloom that my auntie gave me when I was really young. And I wore it every single episode for the next, 2 or 3 months. And I remember the sound crew were like, Georgia, it's banging the microphone. I was like, that's okay. We'll just make it higher. And so the higher, just make the high higher. And I wore it very high. So it was extraordinarily visible. And that was my way of being like, this is happening, but I'm loud and I'm proud. And this is my way of telling people, Jewish or non-Jewish, like that this is who I am. I'm not going to shy away from it. It was something that I didn't think about at that time. I was like, it was a non-negotiable. But yeah, so that was one way that I was able to just at least show my strength at that time.
I love that the Jewish culture and the Jewish religion was, even before October 7th, still such an important part of how you guys wanted to portray you and your family and who you are. And I think that's so beautiful, and that you didn't then shy away from it after October 7, I think is just, each of us has this way that we can fight back. And I think the way you show the beauty of Judaism is just a wonderful way to say, you go low, we go high, and with your high. What's next for you guys?
Wow. Well, there's a lot of things rumbling at the moment. At the current moment, I've like put all of my interior design on hold. Richie's put his building on hold. We are like 200% immersed in Tiles of Ezra. Um, it's keeping us very busy, on our toes, running a business like that's global and stuff, not just in Australia, is, it's not an easy feat, but we are 100% invested. But there is a coffee table book coming out, which is really exciting next year, which is going to be a published project. And that's a culmination of about 20 to 25 of my interior design projects and the meaning behind them. And, celebrating each end user and each client and their story. I'm very proud of the product at hand, and I'm really excited for that to launch. But yeah, just lots of new tile designs and lots of podcasts and lots of fun things happening, and definitely keeping ourselves very, very busy. Maybe I'll
Well,
add one more thing. I think like I'd probably say one thing that I'd like love to add is um, you know, in life, we have lots of dreams and wishes and desires. And I think that sometimes it can be really scary and overwhelming and intimidating to go for them or put them out there. And one thing that I've learned and I'm like really passionate about is like never shying away from putting those things out there. Um, the coffee table book is a pure example of this. I had reached out to the owner of the publishing company 7 or 8 years ago with an idea, and it didn't come to fruition. And then in full circle, he had purchased tiles from Tiles of Ezra, and I saw his name pop up. And I was like, can I help you in any way? He's like, oh my God, I didn't know this was you that owned the business. That makes total sense. Last name, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we met so many years ago. Thank you for giving me a chance. Like, I'm still interested in that book. And I hadn't even thought about it. I just saw his name and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put it out there. And within a week, I was talking about my book that's being published. A deal had been signed. So I do think that a lot of these opportunities come around by like putting yourself out there. And, at the same time, equally, there's a lot of opportunities that I don't get replied to and I get shunned down and don't go to fruition. But I will never stop that from putting myself there out there for other opportunities. And I just think that, um, like I always say to everyone, like, just go for it. Like, what do you have to lose? Like, no one, it's never personal. Just you don't get if you don't ask. And so, if I could inspire anything from this conversation, like a lot of these exciting things have come from me putting myself out there, and um, you know, I just think give it a go.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. We really appreciate it and very excited to let everyone know that they can watch the show.
Yes.
And we appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm like very proud and honored.
Thank you.